Okay, I'd like to call the ADR meeting of January 19th to order. First thing, we'll just do well, first I'll describe how these go since we have a lot of participants this evening, as some of whom have probably not been in an ADR meeting. The way this works is the town and then the owner applicant and or their team present a project. The ADR members ask any questions, if we have any, about the project. After that, we open it up to other participants, whether they're town residents or residents of elsewhere, who want to ask questions or voice their opinion about a project. We then bring it back to the ADR for our final comments and recommendations to the town council. The first thing we're going to do tonight, we'll introduce the members of the ADR. We'll each introduce ourselves, and then we have some ADR business. I'm Mark Kruchnet, an current ADR chair and member. Maybe other members could just go around and.
Yep, Mark Fritz, ADR.
Laura Dewar, ADR member.
Joey Buckingham, ADR member and vice chair.
I'm Steven Sutro.
Okay, thank you, everyone. The first order of business is to approve the minutes of December 15th. I have read through the minutes and I am fine with them. If someone else would like to second that or make comments on any changes, I was recused from 2 of the agenda items.
I didn't have any
read them.
changes.
Oh, go ahead, Mark. Sorry.
I didn't have any changes. I can second that if the other members are in agreement.
Agreed.
Great, so those have been approved. Now we have, as per California state law, open comment time. If anyone would like to comment for up to 3 minutes on any thing they want to talk about that has nothing to do with the agenda that's on the schedule for tonight. Okay, great. So now we can move. Oh,
I have
sorry.
a comment. So this is the time for neighbors and people to.
Oh, no, this is Miss Sheldon. This is only the time to comment if you're commenting on something not on the agenda tonight.
I see. Thank you.
I believe you're going to comment on one of the 2 projects coming up. Great. So, and we will definitely take your comments at that time. So the first item of business is the Hale residence at 92 Laurel Grove. I will let the town talk about it first and then the owners.
Thank you, ADR group members, planner Matthew Weintraub. The item before you is the Hale residence at 92 Laurel Grove Avenue. The owners are Rob and Catherine Hale, and the applicant is Barbara Chambers at Chambers & Chambers Architects. 92 Laurel Grove Avenue is little over an acre in size in gross area, little less than an acre in size when subtracting the 14-foot roadway easement that exists along the Skyland Way frontage. The property has an average slope of 13%, and there is a stream that runs along the front of the property at Laurel Grove Avenue, as one can see in the diagram. The existing conditions include an existing 1-story single-family residence and accessory buildings. The accessory buildings include this 3-car garage and an accessory structure that's located back here. Under the current proposal, there's no change to the existing house or the existing 3-car garage. The existing pool and this small existing accessory structure would be removed as part of the project. A previous project reviewed on October 20th of last year included 2 new ADUs proposed, including a 1-story new accessory building at Skyland Way. The 2 elevations for that building are shown here on the upper right, and a 2-story addition to the existing garage, which is shown here in the bottom right. The project also included a new pool in this location here, center of the property, patios and outdoor activity areas, including a patio in a side yard setback. And the project proposes to remove the existing driveway that runs all the way from Laurel Grove Avenue up to the back of the property, and introduce a new driveway entrance off of Skyland Way. So again, this was the previous project reviewed on October 20th. The ADR group's comments were generally that the project was exceeding the potential of the property in terms of the level of development that was being proposed. And the specific comments of the ADR group are included in the minutes. So the revised project, after taking into account the comments provided by the public and the ADR group members, the applicant has submitted a revised project that proposes no change to the existing 3-car garage. So rather than adding a second story, that building remains the same, as does the house. A new 2-story ADU/pool house would be built in this location. It is not a combination ADU pool house. They are separate spaces. So the ADU would occupy 800 square feet at the second level and a portion of the first level. And the pool house would occupy 550 square feet at the bottom level. They would be completely separate spaces with no internal connections. The project, and these are the elevations of that proposed structure on the right side. The project also includes the previously proposed pool in the same location, approximately the same location. It does eliminate the new patio in the side yard setback and replaces it with a more orchard garden area. And it still maintains the new driveway off of Skyland Way. Some of the project details are that the new FAR would be 14.9%, which is compliant with the 15% maximum FAR in the neighborhood. That's as a result of the new pool house adding 550 square feet. The new ADU per state code and per local codes, 800 square feet is exempt from the FAR requirement. Also, it should be noted that the Ross Valley Fire Department is requiring an all-weather driveway surface, which would be either concrete or asphalt. That very well may end up requiring the driveway to be impervious material. If that's the case, then the stormwater control regulations would essentially require that any net crease in impervious surface coverage be accommodated by a bioretention area, a new bioretention area that would be integrated into the landscape. And the council's typical policy is to require that to be oversized by 150%, or I should say by 50% over what it normally would be. So there very well could be, the final project may include an impervious driveway and a biodetention area that would accommodate and prevent any additional runoff of the property. Public comments have been received from the addresses listed here, almost universally concerned about the new driveway access proposed off of Skyland Way. I will mention that the Public Works Department Director has reviewed the driveway location and has approved it in terms of circulation. The fire department has also reviewed and approved the location and configuration of the driveway. Again, it just comes down to a question of materials in terms of the driveway. The permits required for the project would be an ADU permit with exception. The only exception needed here would be to allow the newly constructed ADU to be located above a first story and to exceed 16 feet in height. The new building would be 18 feet in height, and as shown, the ADU would occupy the top floor of that building. And also design review to construct a new building, to construct a new entry gate, and also to add 1,000 square feet or more of new impervious landscape surface. And so in summary, staff requests that the ADR group discuss the merits of the project and provide a recommendation to the town council regarding the merits of the project consistent with design review. That concludes my presentation. I believe the owner, Robert Hale, has also a presentation that he would like to share as well following my presentation, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Matthew, before you give it over to Mr. Hale, could you quickly tell the ADR what the purpose is of that 14-foot easement? And does the town plan to use it? And if the town did use it at any point, would their property then be exactly the same and it's no real difference and they would just lose whatever screening had been planted in those 14 feet? Because there are definitely some mature trees that look very large that are currently in that easement.
Mhm. Yes, certainly. So this is the existing site plan, and we can see that the 14-foot roadway easement is extending across this area here, across the top 14 feet of the property. That's reserved by the town in case the town does want to expand Skyland Way at any point in the future. The town does not have any plans to expand Skyland Way and really doesn't think that we will be expanding Skyland Way at any point in time. However, there is always that possibility. And so the town policy is not to allow structures to be built within those easement areas, but to allow landscaping and things like driveways and walkways to be located in those areas. And as you stated, if in the future the town does decide to take advantage of that easement, the property owner would simply be losing the improvements in that area, which would be limited to landscaping, fencing, and walkways.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I have another question. Could you tell me where this bioswale might be located?
That has not been designed. The applicant has not designed that yet. It could be located theoretically really anywhere on the property, provided that it doesn't doesn't result in some drainage issue that would be off-site. So it could even be located potentially within a setback area if that's an appropriate location for the drainage to go to.
Okay.
But that would be the result of the engineers working on that stormwater control plan and the town engineer also approving that final location.
Okay. Thank you.
Then may I present now?
Yes, I will stop my screen share.
Thanks, Matthew, and thank you, ADR group members and other people who have joined. Let me just share my screen. Oh, can I not share my screen? It says the host is disabled. Screen sharing.
We'll promote you to co-host and then you'll be able to.
Thank you. Still saying disabled here.
It should work now.
Yep, thank you. Okay, are you seeing this presentation?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So thanks for the opportunity. I'll try to keep it brief, and I apologize. I'm not a design professional, so I'm speaking as a layperson here, but I have great support from our design team at Chambers and Chambers and Elizabeth Everdell Garden Design, who can help. So the context is when Catherine and I bought this property in 2008, we thought the house had a nice exterior. The location was excellent and the community was ideal for our family, including 3 young kids. But we also went into this thinking the interior of the house needed significant updating and that the grounds of the property were very out of sync with the house itself and the aesthetic of Ross and the Laurel Grove neighborhood in particular. So first, phase 1 of our efforts to address that were a complete internal renovation, which was completed in 2019. And I thank any neighbors who are on the call for putting up with that construction. And phase 2 is really to improve the grounds of the property. And that's what the subject is of this proposal today. So Elizabeth Everdell Garden Design and Chambers have collaborated on a master plan and a detailed design to bring the grounds into sync with the house, the neighborhood, and the town by repositioning our pool and driveway, demolishing our old pool house and replacing it with a new, much more aesthetically appealing accessory building. So to get into the details from our standpoint, by moving the driveway off of Laurel Grove and onto Skyland Way, we believe we are mitigating the safety hazard of a dangerous blind curve, decreasing traffic congestion, and increasing pedestrian safety. We also think that it would be nice for ourselves and for our neighbors not have to look up a long asphalt driveway through the gate, which is transparent today, but instead to replace that and to the entire perimeter of the property facing Laurel Grove and Skyland with soil replacing the asphalt and layered screening planting to make the aesthetic really match the neighborhood. The new driveway is sized to incorporate a fire truck turnaround. It's currently to be paved with dry laid permeable cobblestone. And right now, 2 small bioretention ponds will mitigate the stormwater runoff. The existing planting includes several overgrown acacia and bay trees. New healthy planting will provide much more ample screening and will improve the aesthetic view from both streets and neighboring households. And in keeping with the tree palette of the town of Ross, the new screening planting will include coast live oaks and valley oaks, both native to the region. The new design also preserves the few remaining native oaks on site. In terms of screening at the street level, new deer mesh fencing will be located on Skyland and Laurel Grove sides of the property, lined from day one with a dense cherry laurel hedge. We're asked our landscape designers to make sure we're not relying on long-term growth to accomplish that screening. The existing residence will open up to a new stone patio bordered by terrace planting beds and a wide stair to meet the lawn. And in keeping with the sloping terrain of the property and to reduce the amount of hardscape retaining structures, the lawn will roll off at both downhill perimeters. A slope lawn will connect the main lawn to the stone pool terrace in the direction of Laurel Grove. It will disappear into a series of low curved dry stacked stone walls that are hidden with dense planting. Between the stone pool terrace and Skyland Way, a small semicircular lawn will be surrounded by a short dry stacked stone wall before the planting area slopes down to the surrounding terrain. And we have located the pool equipment into a central location that will not be visible from either street. The accessory structure itself addressing the ADR group's feedback regarding bulk and mass, we've omitted one ADU above the garage and pulled the new accessory building well out of the setback towards the center of the property. The facades along Skyland Way and Laurel Grove are articulated with bay windows and are fenestrated, more pleasing architecturally and less like the back of a building as previously commented. We are proposing warm cedar exterior siding and dark composition roofing, which will both be receded from the landscape. And our proposal conforms to the town's regulations for height, location, and floor area. And just to go through how we have responded to the ADR group feedback from last time, point by point on the next page. So the first ADR feedback point, too much bulk and mass in the previous proposal. We removed the ADU above the garage. The ADR group feedback regarding the accessory buildings being pushed out to the edge of the property. We've relocated the pool house plus the ADU pool house plus ADU accessory structure towards the center. And regarding the road-facing facades of the new accessory structure should not look like the back of a building. The road-facing facades are now more interesting architecturally and have windows. The feedback regarding the outdoor dining patio, which was compounding a non-conforming setback use of the house, we've removed that patio altogether. So I hope that we've addressed the feedback. And I'm not just saying this, but I do think all the feedback was helpful, and I'm actually much happier with the current proposal. So I look forward to your comments and hope to have your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else from your team, Mr. Hale, going to present, or are you done with the presentation? We should go to our questions now if we have any.
I think that should be it for our presentation, and the rest of the team can help answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Does anyone on the ADR have any questions? I can't see some of you, so when you click on the raise your hand button, Matthew or Patrick will call on you if you happen to be muted.
I think I'm good, Mark.
Mhm.
Joey, do you have any questions, comments? Laura?
Did you say
Okay.
that a roadway could be placed in the easement? Did someone say that? I'm pretty sure a roadway, an easement could support a roadway, right?
Well, so the town has a 14-foot roadway easement that occupies the northern 14 feet of the property. Theoretically, the town could expand the road into that area, but the town has no plans to do that. And the town actually does not think it's going to be expanding that roadway.
Right, but could the clients place their roadway in that easement, knowing that at some point
Mhm.
the town might take that over as the road, and then I'm just curious if that's fair game, that easement could be used for private roadway, or is that easement untouchable other than landscape improvements?
So the town would allow the easement to be improved with landscaping, with fencing, and with driveways and walkways, but not with structures.
Okay,
And the town also measures setbacks from the edge of the roadway easement, not necessarily the property line. So I should note in this case that the applicant is actually incorporating that additional distance into their setback and meeting the minimum 25-foot setback from the roadway easement, not just the
Right.
property line. So even if the road were improved at some point, they would be meeting the minimum setback.
exactly. So they're basically have a double setback that they're adhering to.
Yes.
Okay,
And they would, if the road were expanded, they would lose improvements in that area, which we would be limited to landscaping and driveways and walkways and fencing, basically.
okay. Thank you.
If there are no other ADR questions, I will open it up to the public. Matthew or Patrick, whichever one of you is in control, you can just call on people that raise their hand and let them speak for up to 3 minutes.
All
You
right,
can
so,
use the tools to raise your hand in the tools below in Zoom under participant or reactions. I think you can raise your hand. Is that right?
Yeah, so I see a raised hand from Eileen Sheldon, so I will unmute you and you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. And thanks for taking the time to present this. I'm fearful that I'm coming to this sort of late to the game, but I just, as a longtime resident at the top of Skyview at 1 Skyview Road, I want to know if the town will address that how congested the bottom of Skyland Way has become. It's often used as overflow parking for residents and people on Laurel Grove. It's also become construction staging parking for quite some time. So for those of us, I think there are 7 residences at the top of Skyland Way and Skyview who depend on a safe ease of access to our own homes. If the town can just address what that's going to look like, this is obviously an extensive project. And I'm curious how you've mapped out the added impact to the street as a not a through street. And if you could respond to that, please.
Yes. So the addition of a driveway on Skyland would potentially remove off-street parking in that area, or I should say on-street parking in that area. That would be the result of the impact in terms of parking. So there would be, 1 or 2 less spaces available in that area for parking. So that would actually reduce the number of cars that could be parked along that area. There are no plans that I know of to change the parking that's allowed along that area. As far as construction impacts, those are reviewed on a project-by-project basis and minimized to the greatest extent feasible. I think it's recognized by the town that it's almost impossible to make construction invisible entirely, and so there are potentially some impacts. I would say this is a fairly large property that could accommodate quite a bit of staging and parking on the property itself. And I believe that the building department and public works department would work with the owner to ensure that there would be as minimal impact as possible during construction. As far as, you know, the sort of broader overall long-term vision of circulation in this area and in the town, I think I would have to defer to our Public Works Director, who's not on this meeting. But my understanding is that this would be viewed as actually a fairly minor impact to the overall condition that may exist.
Eileen, thank you for your comment. Before we go on and to the next person who will speak, I know several of you had similar comments. So there's no need for everyone to voice the same opinion. We at the ADR do not deal with construction management plans, but as someone who has had construction in the town before, often the town makes a plan and has people park on site as much as possible. And as Patrick said, as Matthew said, whether or not one driveway is added and there are 8 families instead of 7 using it, the town probably wouldn't consider that to be large, but that would be something to bring up at the town council and or with the Public Works Director. Thanks. Sorry, you go on for the next person who wants to make a comment on the project.
Okay, thank you, Chair. The next raised hand I see is Amelia.
Hi. Yeah, thanks for taking the time and showing us the project. I also kind of came late to the game because I was not aware of the project for the last meeting. And I only saw the detail of the proposed change in access to Skyland as I opened up the agenda late last week. So I really do have a comment similar to Eileen's. I wonder, I just want to make sure everyone knows that there is no parking at all on Laurel Grove. So all the guest parking for the houses close to Skyland, as well as all the guest parking for Skyland is on that one side of the road, which is where the proposed driveway would go. So I am just stating for the record that even, you know, a couple to a few parking spots less is a pretty significant impact, as it is currently in its current state. Without that, without the removal of some spots, the road is often congested at the bottom of the hill. There is a stop sign there, which is difficult to navigate, along with the turn. With guest parking spots in use, Skyland becomes a 1-lane road where cars have to wait for others to pass before they can traverse the road. So I wonder how we as residents make sure that the Public Works Director hears our voices and knows the state of the congestion at that road access point. So I understand that they've looked at it. I just want to make sure that they're hearing our concerns as well. So that would be, you know, after the project, not including, I understand this project would take about 2 years. So that's in addition to the 1 year that already took place in terms of remodeling the interior of the home, where there in fact was significant congestion. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Eileen. So in regards to traffic and parking on that street, that's really not our purview at all. We're strictly advisory design review. We just advise on the architectural and landscaping designs. As far as parking on the street, that's something that the town council and or the Public Works Director would deal with. It's just, we just have no say on that. Like, even if all of us agreed with you and said there should be no parking on that street, although I'm not sure if you want more or less parking, because there'd be 2 parking spots removed. But even if we all agree that there should be no parking on that street ever, we would have no say in that. That's just beyond what we do. We're just architects and design professionals and design advisors for these projects before they get to the town council.
Sure. No, so I'm stating that this would remove very needed parking places along the street. And my question was, how do we make sure that the Public Works Department and the town hear our concerns regarding congestion as a result of removing parking spots and as a result of introducing another driveway?
I would talk directly to the Public Works Director and or the Town Council. It's just not, it's
Okay,
not something
thank-
we have any say with, but
Thank you very much.
you're welcome.
And Chair, if I could just chime in really quickly. Patrick Streeter, I'm the Planning and Building Director. And we do have what's called our Development Services group. That's the town staff that works on development. And we have a weekly check-in where we do report out on things like the comments that we received during ADR group meetings, projects that are upcoming, issues of concern for before something goes to council. So comments that we receive both through email, phone calls. Richard Simonich is the Director of Public Works, so I'd encourage you to reach out to him directly as well. But also just public comments that we receive either at meetings or through correspondence. We do share that among staff, so we are aware of these types of issues.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Patrick.
Okay, and I see a hand raised from Barbara.
Go.
I've lived here for about 53 years, and I've listened to Amelia and Eileen. They've said just about what I feel it's going to be a bottleneck there. It's already difficult, a lot of backing up, and and I'm sorry to see it because I didn't even we approached this back in December when we saw the story polls, but we didn't, we never got a notice. But we're really just, I mean, I don't care as much about what's going on the property itself. It's just the problem that affects the 10 of it, or I mean, how many are we? 10, I think, up on Skyland up here that have to get through the bottleneck down at the bottom. But yeah, and then the problem with the parking on Laurel Grove is
There is none.
there isn't any. I mean, it's, yeah. Needless to say, I think it's a done deal, so I don't know that, well, smartass. My daughter does the driving up and down because I've been confined to home. Hoping to get my vaccination.
Wouldn't it be best if they, since they have a Laurel Grove
This is my
address
daughter.
now,
Introduce
wouldn't
yourself.
it be better if they just kept the driveway on Laurel Grove? There's plenty of frontage to make a nice driveway off of Laurel for them that maybe curves or something.
Well, they've got now their pool in the way.
Quiet.
Wait, thank you for your comments. As far as the driveway, that is their request to the town, and they're making it, and we can discuss it here, and they'll discuss it again at town council. But they are trying to relocate their driveway away from Laurel Grove and have more planting along Laurel Grove. And that is their current request.
And Chair, I see no more raised hands.
Okay, I will bring it back to the ADR for our recommendations. Who would like to go first?
Actually, if I can
Oh, sorry.
interrupt, I do see Barbara's raised her hand again. She had not used her full.
Sure. Oh, no, yeah,
minutes.
no, go right ahead. Oh, I'm not sure. Does Barbara know she can speak now? Is she unmuted?
It may have just been a technical glitch.
When is
Okay.
the town council meeting for this project?
Well, it has not been set yet, but if they, after this, I believe the next town council meeting is, I think it's February 11th. Is that correct? Matthew or Patrick, do you know when the next town council meeting is? Sorry, let's see.
Yes, February 11th.
Yeah,
It's the
February, it would be,
second
if it's at
Thursday
the
of every
next
month.
town council meeting, it would be February 11th. If they don't submit all their work in time, then it would be sometime in March.
And Chair Akrushnit, if I could just add some information for the public's benefit.
Please.
The town's policy to notice neighbors is to send public notice to neighbors at least 10 days in advance. And that's to property owners within 300 feet of the property. So the code requires the town to send those notices out at least 10 days in advance of a hearing to all the owners within 300 feet of the residence. So if you're within 300 feet of the residence, you should be receiving notices. If you're outside that area, you may not be receiving a notice. And so that would explain why you weren't noticed for this project. It's based on the requirements of the municipal code. So thank you.
Thanks, Matthew.
I do have a raised hand from Barbara again, so I might recommend that we get any comments or questions out now, and then we can.
I think most of the neighbors in the up on the top are very much impacted by this work, and we should all be receiving notice of the town council meeting, please.
Yeah, because it's not the building, it's the driveway that affects us. But we never heard about the fact that driveway was going to be coming out on Skyland. I mean, that.
Well, okay, thank you. So it's good that you know now. I don't think that the ADR can change the town notification rules for any project, much less this particular one, especially with such short notice. However, if you and anyone else who lives up at the top wants to attend, comment the town council meeting, I'm glad you now know when it's going to be. And please let anyone else you know when it will be.
And if I may, Chair Akrushnit, just to clarify, this item has not actually been scheduled yet for a town council hearing. The next possible date could be February 11th, but that has not been set in stone. So again, those notices have not been sent and the schedule has not been made.
Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you everyone for your comments. We will now bring it back to the ADR. Is there an ADR member who would like to go first on this project?
I will.
Thanks, Joey.
Okay, so I would like to separate the architectural features of this project and the circulation features, because I think they're two separate problems that need to be solved. And I would like to first really commend the design team for addressing all of our comments from the last meeting regarding the various ADU placements, what we thought about everything they did the last time. I think they exceeded our expectations and addressed the project in a way that I feel is really sensitive and works quite well. I like the way that the ADU and the pool house are actually combined, to be less massive on the lot. And what I particularly like is that the narrow side faces the public, and that the public doesn't experience this massive building driving by. I think it's very well detailed. And I think with the appropriate heavy planting, it's quite a success. And we've taken what was going to be 2 ADUs per their right and really minimized what they had the potential to do on that lot. So I'm in full support of the architectural proposal. That then, of course, we get to this very contentious road switch, which, just so everyone in the audience understands, we do not have a lot of control over that, but we can opine on it. And what I would say to all of you at the top of Skyland is be careful what you ask for, because it's basically going to be 2 strips of asphalt next to each other if we keep the roadway where it is or put it out in the area that is basically, you know, a area set aside for a road, right? They can build right up to the lot line another road that's right next to the existing road, where you could have had that whole strip planted out heavily to hide the ADU and to really hide the entire lot. So they could keep their entrance on Laurel Grove, but they have basically, I think it's a superior design plan to enter off of Skyland if you can figure out a way to do it safely. And is that a town thing? Does the town need to come up with a better plan there? Does the town need to use their land to make that safer? Are we taking away property rights by not allowing these people to move their entrance from Laurel Grove, which is not that safe, to Skyland? Would it work to have extra pullout space on Skyland so that the people at the top were not affected? These are all kind of questions that I can't answer. And in fact, the ADR doesn't really have control over. But in terms of the architecture, I'm very supportive of it. Let me hold on just a second. Let me just look at my notes here. The ADU is going to happen no matter what because of state mandate. So what we need to do is make sure it looks good and it's screened and it doesn't create a lot of extra impact to the neighborhood. I think the architectural merits are excellent. Hold on just a second here. During construction, would it be possible, if you did get the side Skyland driveway approved, would it be possible to keep the old driveway until the very last minute, park all the construction cars there, and then at the last minute do the changeover? I think that's it. Basically, my comments are to separate architecture versus this road change. I personally believe the road change is a much preferable design change, but it needs to be engineered properly so that it doesn't affect the people at the top. That's it.
Thank you, Joey. Laura, Stephen, Mark, who would like to go next? Okay, then I'll go next. Well, mine's easy because I was basically going to say everything that Joey did as far as the redesign being great, as far as mass is concerned, not having the structure seem so imposing, the new structure proposed seem so imposing. Everything's been placed outside of the setbacks. And as people pointed out earlier, they sort of have a double setback of the 25 feet plus the 14 feet. So you're looking at 39 feet of greenery between the buildings and the street, which I think is great. I think overall the project just looks very good. And although it will make 8 homes instead of 7 using that street, that doesn't seem like a big difference to me. And I don't think there'll be any more or less parking along that street just with a rotation of the driveway entrance. Okay. Mark, Stephen, Laura.
I'll go ahead. I think that I can appreciate that the new layout and the new design has taken into account all of the comments from the last meeting. I think the architectural detailing on the ADU and pool house has is greatly improved. And removing the old pool shed would be an improvement on the property. And I actually agreed that taking that long driveway and having the parking come in off of the side road is an improvement as well, for the property owner and visually for the lot to not have that long driveway running through it. So yeah, those are all the comments that I have.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, I'll go next. I'll reiterate that. I do have a little quick question. I noticed in the submittal that the ADU is listed at 18 feet. Is that an accurate count? I couldn't see on the plans. It didn't note the ridge height from the rear elevation. If someone on the design team could just verify is that true? It's 18 feet off the pool deck? Yeah, I see Barbara nodding. So, okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was reading that correctly. My only comment on the architecture, I guess, is a bit of what I'm seeing around town makes me want to just highlight an obvious thing. The location of the kitchen on the ground floor of the ADU, or actually on the level of the pool home, does make me expect that that passageway between the pool home and the pool unit and the ADU will be utilized some way, that will be cut. I think it's a bit of an unusual layout, which makes me think that that is the anticipated use, to combine those two at 800 and 500. I don't think it's anything that, from a design perspective, or a council perspective, that they can call on, but it does seem pretty obvious that that's probably going to be the move. I think it's worthy of just recognizing that. We're seeing some of these, I would characterize them as sort of games being played with ADU units and connecting them to homes, expanding their rights as much as possible. So I think it's just worthy to state that that's probably going to happen. But as far as the exterior architecture and mass, I concur with the rest of the team. Vast improvement, and it's well placed in the property. I also concur. I think the added load of an additional car on Skyland is not particularly heavy. The loss of the 2 parking spots, I think that it is important for the neighborhood to meet with the town planning department, the building department, and the Department of Public Works to understand how they can mitigate that congestion at the base. Having 2 more or 2 less parking spaces, I don't believe is actually going to be substantive. It's actually figuring out a longer term solution, which I think is what Joey was hinting towards, using that easement in ways that enhance the exiting from Skyland onto Laurel Grove, so that it's not congested in the way that it is today. I think that's the direction the solution should go, but the driveway and its proximity to the parking garage is obvious. I think that it's an unusual way that it sits today, so it makes sense to move it. So I would be in support of that. So overall, I can support the project 100%.
Thanks, Mark. Stephen?
I agree with what everyone has said, so I don't need to reiterate those things. And I would also add that I know the town council has to find agreeable the exception, or the ask for an exception to height here. And I think that is a reasonable ask given the topography and the intelligent way that the solution is employed. So I think it's great. I can fully support it as submitted.
Thanks, Stephen. Okay, Matthew and Patrick, so we have unanimous support for the project coming from the ADR, including, as Stephen pointed out, the slight height exception due to the topography of the lot.
Could I just add one more thing?
Please.
That I started to say and I didn't say it well enough, was that I thought in order to mitigate the damages perceived to Skyland Way, maybe losing 2 parking spaces, could you widen the proposed driveway so that there was actually just more on-site parking, and maybe, have a little bit of a pull-out space on their property? So if there were cars associated with their property, although I would urge all the residents to look at the amount of parking this property is already proposing, is really quite substantial compared to most properties on that road. There's over 6 cars worth of parking, but it could be something where they could just even have a little bit more in the pull out, and that would kind of calm some of the worries about less parking that they're losing. Just something to be noted for the town council meeting.
And Chair Akrishna, may I provide some information just in response to a comment?
Please.
Just with respect to the ADR space and the pool house space, there's actually a regulating mechanism to ensure that those remain separate, and that's the building permit process. In order to be constructed as approved, the wall without an interior connection would have to be constructed and inspected that way. And then to alter that lawfully, the owner would have to get a building permit to make that connection, interior connection. And to do so otherwise would be unlawful. So I just wanted to state that for the record.
Yeah, Mark.
Appreciate that, Matthew.
Thanks, Matthew. Okay, so great. So we are done with item number 1, or 4A, the Hale residence. And now we will move on to the next item. Thank you everyone for your time. The Berry residence at 51 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. Matthew, I'll let you start it off and then pass it either to Noah, who I see is in the meeting, or I don't know if James Coy, architect, is in the meeting, but I'll let Matthew and then Noah talk.
Great, thank you, Chair and ADR group members. Item 4B is the Berry residence at 51 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard. Here are some views from the exterior front elevation. The owner is Noah Berry and the architect is James Coy. And 51 Sir Francis Drake Boulevard is just under 20,000 square foot lot with an average slope of just under 10%. It is what's called a repetitive loss property located in the FEMA floodway. So it backs up right to the FEMA floodway. And a repetitive loss property is any property that has claims of $51,000 or more twice in any 10-year period since 1978. And this is a repetitive loss property. In other words, it has experienced multiple damage from flooding events. The project description is to lift this existing single-family residence by 2.7 feet out of the floodplain to prevent further damage to the living quarters. The project would involve literally lifting the building up 2.7 feet and then extending the exterior stairs down to the new or up to the new floor level, which would increase the coverage by about 90, a little over 90 square feet, and which would still allow the entire building coverage to remain compliant with the maximum for the district. And it would also maintain the existing non-conforming building setbacks. So again, basically lifting the existing residence right up in space 2.7 feet. The building elevations at front and back would look like this. So in this area here, we see the lifted area where a new crawl space would be created at the front, and the new space would be sided with materials to match existing, and a new front entry stairs would be created. And here we see the back view. Again, this is the area here. This is the area here that would be experience the lift. And so this would be the building at the new height. The existing garage would not be altered or lifted, so it would remain in its current place, essentially resulting in a split level type situation. Staff also recommended, and the owner and the designer included some architectural details, including this string course to divide the massing of the new larger structure, to just divide the massing of the main level from the crawl space, and also adding some brackets to the gable ends, just to add some visual elements to what would be a higher roof line. The specific features were chosen by the architect. Staff simply recommended some type of feature to accomplish those two things, to divide the massing and to add some interest to the roof line. So some project details. This property is part of the FEMA Marin County Structure Elevation Mitigation Project. FEMA has set aside almost $3 million for 16 repetitive loss properties in Marin County. And that would cover 75% of the cost of elevating these existing homes at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation. And those properties include 51 Sir Francis Drake, which is the subject property, and 53 Sir Francis Drake, which is adjacent and which has previously been approved for this by the town for this lifting project. No public comments have been received in response to the 300-foot notice that was sent at least 10 days in advance of the meeting. The permits required are design review to increase the roof height, and non-conformity permit to increase or alter the structure and its existing projections, which are non-conforming with respect to the front setback and the north side setback. Again, not increasing the non-conformity in any way, just maintaining those existing non-conforming setbacks. And so that concludes my presentation. Staff requests that the ADR group discuss the merits, and provide a recommendation on the design review merits of the project. I'm available to answer any questions, and I believe the owner, Noah Berry, is also on the line. Thank you.
Noah, did you want to say anything or before we asked questions?
I'm going to let Jim Coy take the lead on this one, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have directly of me as well.
Thanks.
Yes, hi, this is James Coy. I think Matthew's presentation was comprehensive. It's basically a practical lifting of the house to address the flood zone issues. And we're also adding some architectural amenities to, since the house will be slightly higher, it'll help address some of the exposure and the open gables and also the front elevation of the house. So the breaking up the increased wall area with the horizontal band should address that. We'll be matching the existing materials and colors so that that it'll blend in with the current look of the house. The fireplace is unreinforced masonry, so that will be removed, and the roof will be patched where the chimney's taken out. So it's a pretty straightforward project. We're not proposing changes in landscape or fencing at this point. We do have the arborist report that detailed the tree protection plans for the construction phase. And it appears that all the existing trees are not going to be impacted, but they will need to be protected with the construction screening. So yeah, I think that pretty much summarizes it. I'd be happy to answer any detailed questions.
Thanks, James. I have a question for James and or Noah. So you're requesting to raise it by 2.7 feet. Is there some height that you thought would be better for flood protection, or is that sort of your ideal height? Are you limiting yourself because you think 3 feet won't be accepted, or just wondering how you chose that number, and are you very, very comfortable with it?
Well, the FEMA grant provides funds, matching funds for raising the house to 1 foot above the new base flood elevation, and they will not cover any additional costs associated with lifting the structure above and beyond 1 foot above that. So that's where we picked the 2.7 foot figure came from, raising the house 1 foot above the new base flood elevation.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that you weren't limiting yourself or something based upon like the town or us. Okay, but it's more of a FEMA thing.
Yeah, it's the new FEMA flood map.
Okay. That was it. Does anyone else have any questions of James or Noah? Nope. Okay, well, that was easy.
I have a
And
question.
I think
sorry,
Laura
Laura.
does there. Go, Laura.
Sorry. So it's not being, there's no plan for paint, it's just being repainted the same color? Is that what I'm understanding?
That's the plan, to match the existing siding with the additional siding required, and to paint it to match the existing beige color.
Okay. I can't see if there's anyone in the meeting other than the members and Noah and James. Is there anybody from the public that has a comment before I bring this back to the ADR?
I do not see any raised hands.
Okay. Thanks, Patrick. Okay, we'll bring it back to the ADR for recommendations. Who would like to go first? Mark, you have extensive Sir Francis Drake flood experience.
That's correct. I raised my home. I live right down the street from you guys. Yeah, no, I really don't have any comments. I mean, I think this is the appropriate thing to do. I have one, maybe I do have one question. You have double-sided stairs coming off the front, whereas today I think you only have stairs coming off the left-hand side as you're facing the property. Is there a new reason to have that second set of stairs off to the right? Are you accessing something over there that you want to have that look?
Well, I think I'll let Jim go ahead.
Excuse me. The intention there was to, since the house is going to be further above grade, to just increase the access to the site. And the symmetry seemed to lend itself to the front elevation. But you're right. I mean, the existing only has stairs on the, would it be the left-hand side. So it just seemed to make better use of the site. And that the feeling I get is the house is going to be further up, noticeably further up in the, in the air above the ground. So having that extra stairway would just make it more livable.
Okay. Yeah, I may just, I want to look at the elevation again as some of the other team members' comments, and maybe I'll come back to me, Mark, towards the end. But in general, no, this is pretty straightforward. I mean, this is what you get when you raise the home and you have to stick within the FEMA flood numbers. So I can appreciate that.
Would someone else like to go next?
I'll go.
Thanks, Stephen.
I am totally comfortable with it as proposed. I was trying to see if any of the X-bracing or the increased stilted height on the back was visible from any public place. I can't find that it is. I know that if you did put any screening on those posts, they have to have portholes and the water has to be allowed through, and it's kind of complex. And I think that that's an aesthetic issue that's for the internal to the property. So if that were visible or visibly noxious to other folks, I would suggest some screening on the bottom, but I don't think that it is. And I think that's great as proposed. And I understand that it's non-conforming in terms of the front setback and the side setback. I think that's fine with the lifting. I also think it's fine with the steps and the way that the new access up is arranged, just because of the nature of Sir Francis Drake. I think that that's fine. I could support that as proposed.
Okay. Laura, Joey?
Laura? Sure. Yeah, I had what Stephen had said about the decking, the posts for the rear yard decking being raised. I, again, don't know if that's visible to anybody other than the homeowner, and had just kind of thought about if some planting or something could be added to reduce the visual on that. And then perhaps I'm overstepping for what we're being asked of. The only thing that I noticed is one of the most noticeable things when you're going by is actually the garage. So I just was curious if that siding continued on the garage, if that could make it a more cohesive look. Mm-hmm. But regardless of that, I would be in support of the raising of the house. I have no issues with the design of it. That's it.
Oh, are you finished? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. All done.
Sorry, I didn't want to jump in. I agree with everybody who has spoken already, and Laura. And my biggest design ask or thing that I was focusing on was, it was kind of a shame that you were not doing anything with the garage and the roof line of the garage to match the newly improved house. And I understand that might just be a financial issue. And of course, we want you to improve your house and get it out of the floodplain and be able to afford that. But if there were any way you could swing it to improve the roof line of the garage so that it matched the house, it would really make that house sing, and it would be something you should consider. But again, that's a financial consideration, and I'm very much in support of what you are doing to the house itself. And Noah, I'm the one who came running by today with my earphones in. Hi. looking a little different. But good job on the design, and if you can swing it, try to make the garage have a new.
That's something I plan on doing at a later date, is
Yeah.
to lift the house first, and then my second step will be to do the garage next. But I can't do the garage as part of my FEMA grant, because that's not part of it. So I have to do this piecemeal at this point in time.
Right, get it. I completely get it. And I think what you've done to achieve this goal is great. I think the design looks fine, and maybe have the garage on your back burner. Okay.
Definitely. Yes. Thank you.
I agree with everyone else. I'm fully supportive of it. I think it's great. You're going to get your house out of the flood zone. But I also agree with my colleagues who said the house would look nicer if you did something with the garage roof at a later date. In regards to the stair issue, just because Mark raised it, personally, and this is just a matter of taste, I think it would look more homey with just one side having stairs going up as it is now. So it might be something you just think about. I mean, it's fine either way. Personally, I think you'd be happier with the look, even though it's a slightly less practical, with just one staircase going up as you've had it for these years. But that's my opinion. Either way, I'm very supportive of the project and wish you luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Mark, are you all good? Did you want to add anything else, or you're good?
No, I think I had a similar sensibility to the stair, and that's why I asked. Something about the symmetry, actually, I know, James, it seems strange, bothers me actually a little bit. I'm not sure why.
It
And
makes
then I
it look
would
a
say-
little busier because you got the railings going down both sides instead of just one.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking just sort of a primary entrance access, as a visitor to the site, you're coming up from the left as you do today. Again, I'm supportive either way. I just think, I think it's almost forced symmetry to some degree, unnecessarily. But then I would say to Noah, looks like an ADU could go on top of that new garage when you put it up there. Your next project.
Good idea. There you go. Okay.
No, I'm fully supportive, Mark. I was struggling a little bit on trying to make a determination on the double stair.
Okay, great. So Matthew, we have a unanimous support for the project, and best of luck to you, Noah, going forward. I'm sure you've probably done a lot of paperwork and jumped through a lot of hoops to get to where you're going. So good job on finishing one more hurdle.
Yeah, let
Thank you.
us be the last, hopefully, hurdle and get going on it.
Luckily, you
Fingers
don't have to
crossed.
worry about floods this year since it hasn't rained. Right. Thank you. Okay, so now we're done with the Berry residents. We have no conceptual advisory design review. Is there any staff communication other than the fact that our next meeting date is February 16th?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. In that case, I suggest we adjourn.
Yeah.
All right. Well,